This is my Minecraft world. In it, we have a respectable house, a farm, a dock, some storage. Now, this might be a nice and campy living situation, but the villagers are living in poverty. We are living in poverty. The only economic stimulation this little world gets is when we trade with the villagers, sell them crops, and buy some of their food. So, we decided to come together and turn this poor Minecraft world into a thriving nation, great for all its citizens. So, first things first, of course, we needed to expand the house. This is going to be the base of operations and where all the world is going to be managed from. I constructed a birch hallway and then dug away an area for household expansion. Now, although we're developing the house right now, next we're going to be doing a project within the village to improve that area, and the goal here is to be balanced in development of these two areas so one isn't significantly richer or poorer than the other section. And okay, here we are. So the digging here is essentially done. So then we moved on and began to lay down the foundation for this new area. And this is going to be developed into 2 rooms with a back door leading out to the little pond area. And we'll probably build a path around there in the future. And the first order of business here is to build a banner room. Well, that's a little bit unnecessary. We are going to eventually designate regions within the world. Probably give them names and flags just for organization and keeping them, you know, referenceable. So here we are. We're complete here. And then I took a little break to harvest the farm because we were running pretty low on emeralds. So I harvested up the farm, and while I was on this building break, I realized my bedroom being in this little back closet here was not really the best spot. So I decided to move it onto the indoor balcony. And I mean, it's not much, but I think it's better than the closet. So back to work here, and I've started construction on the banner room. It's not supposed to be the largest room, and I didn't want to spend too much space in the house on this, but just a little area to get some design work done for the sake of organizing the subdivisions of our little country here. So anyway, as this build ended, we moved on to something a little more economically valuable. Here, in the loosely defined southern province of the world, is the town. Now, although it is the place in the world with the highest and only villager population, it is pretty much nothing aside from the naturally generated houses and buildings. So it was time to make that different. So I began by collecting some of the dark oak wood from the nearby forest, and then it was time to start building. Now, this wasn't supposed to be the largest pen of all time, just enough to kickstart the sheep production to sell to the local villagers and begin to build the economy of the region. And popping this part up didn't take very long at all. After we were done the main fence, we did a little bit of terraforming inside the cage to make sure there were no areas where the sheep would fall in the water and get trapped. And then we cut down some more trees for the sake of gathering materials to build a little hut that would go along the side of the fence and serve two purposes. One, to simply store materials for the sake of the sheep, their food, their meat, and whatnot. And second, to give a small amount of shelter to the sheep for the sake of rain and coverage. Now, while the time lapse is playing out in the background, I wanted to further delve into the subdivisions of the world now that we're doing a little more industrialization. So, for the subdivisions, first there will be the southern subdivision, which we're working in right now. It'll encompass the village, and if you notice these little naturally carved out sections of the forest here, we're hoping to probably expand this subdivision into those at some point. Second will be the subdivision that includes the house and surrounding areas. It'll probably go as far as the nearby rivers, and we hope to probably move a permanent population there in the future that isn't just us players. Third will possibly be a swamp subdivision over in this area of the world that I haven't yet done anything in. But in the future, if we need to expand, that's some area where we can go. And finally will be this subdivision that is the national park because the dark oak forest is honestly just a beautiful biome, and we don't want to just completely destroy it to make way for build, so we want to mark this off as an area that we aren't going to tear down. Anyway, as a fully rendered map of the world, might look something like this. If you like this map, I've posted it in my community notes, so take a peek. And now that I've taken a brief coffee break, we have concluded the construction of the sheep pen. Now, although this was a fantastic thing to finish and a fantastic thing to have done, it highlighted a major problem in the world. Transport between the house area and the village area was simply too difficult. Traversing through the forest and back took too much time and wasted a lot of time on this build. So our next project was going to be something to correct that, and we decided on a railway. Before we jumped straight into building, we first had to decide where we were going to build, and there were two optional routes. First, drop south and then go east, or drop east and then go south. Now, the first option, terrain-wise, was easier. We had to cut through a decent amount of forest, yes, but the other option had to avoid a hill, go through the swamp, and go through probably an equal amount of forest. So, based purely on terrain, the option was easy. However, as mentioned before, if in future we want to build a new settlement in the swamp area, we would want the train to connect up to that. So, due to those factors, we decided to take the go east and drop south route. Now, before we could begin building, we of course had to mine out the materials that we needed. So we went down into the caves, collected a bunch of stone and andesite, and then we surfaced and began to build. Now, our first decision when coming to this build began essentially right away, as the previously mentioned hill was right at the beginning. So we had to decide, do we want to go around the hill, over the hill, or through the hill? Going over the hill was the most straightforward. However, it would have required building a large diagonal bridge that would have been simply too complex for the small region we had. We could have gone around the hill as well, however, the large diversion we would have had to make would not have been worthwhile, so in the end we decided to simply bore a tunnel through the hill. It would not be extraordinarily long, so we didn't really have to worry about the time that we would have to sink into digging, but it did take us a decent amount of time. When we came out on the other side, we were in the swamp, and we decided that instead of simply laying the railway across the swamp floor, to build it slightly elevated to keep it flat and make it a little easier for our construction. We turned, and then came to the final stretch of dark oak forest, which we spent time chopping through, placing, and eventually the railway was complete. Now, it wasn't good enough to simply have a plate of stone on the ground and be done. Once we had finished laying down the rails, we began to build a little railway hut on the village side of the railway. This was simply to make a nice area where we could store our minecarts and travel back and forth to, and we did it in the villager house style. And it's important that while we're building all these effective builds to make the world more efficient, travel faster, and the world just genuinely more oiled, that we remember what the point of all of it is for, and it's to improve the lives of our villagers, improve the lives of us. So these nice little touches that just improve the look of the world, improve the feel of the world are very important, and they help us remember what it's all for. To make the lives of the villagers beautiful, and the lives of us a little more nice. Now that we're at the end here, let's talk about what we've done. So first, we built up the banner room to improve the house. Next, we constructed the sheep pen to improve the economic development of the southern subdivision. And finally, we completed the railway to make the connection between the two of them easier and quicker. Thank you very much for watching, and like if you liked, subscribe if you would like to subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much.